Good morning. Um, Wednesday. Here we are. Um, yeah, for some reason I thought it was Thursday, but it's going to take me a little while to get used to all this. Which day is which day, and all that. So we'll see. Good morning, Dora. Yeah, what a great day. It's a little cooler today, not as humid. Yesterday was really. Um, I can see I'm already getting spoiled about the weather, but it felt really kind of humid and kind of icky. But today seems better. Um, I've got some stuff to get done, some construction work. We'll see how that goes. We're also supposed to get some work done on the house today. I don't know if that's going to happen. We haven't heard back, but they were supposed to come today. Um, we're getting a hatch put in the roof, which which sounds kind of crazy, but I'm telling my husband that having a hatch in your roof. So in New Orleans, this is a common thing to have a hatch in the roof of your house because, well, you can guess why, right? Because you might need to get out. And just like a boat, you want to stay on the house as long as possible. And the higher point, the better. So that's not why we're putting that in. Although living right near the river here, I don't know that in the future that might not be important. Um, but we have a flat roof, which is over the yoga room and the room behind it. Um, this is a little addition built onto the side of the house. And the story goes this was a doctor's house around the turn of the century. And he was here as a doctor for Delaware City for about 50 years. He practiced here before he died. Um, and had his office in the house, as you know. I guess some doctors still do it, but it was certainly more common early on. I remember when I was a kid going to both of my doctors as a kid were as I was growing up were had offices in their home. Um, so he came here as a very young man, right out of medical school, and apparently helped a mother and a baby with a very difficult delivery. Made sure both made it, and the father and husband um, built him an addition onto his house. Um, I don't know, as payment or as gratitude, or maybe that's just the story. I don't know, but that's what this is. Below me is what used to be the waiting room, and behind and one floor down is what was the examining room, and there's still water. It still has water plumbed to it, although we don't have a sink attached. But we were wondering what that water was for when we saw the pipes when we moved in. But someone let us know. And there still are a few people around town here that uh, remember coming to see Dr. Ellis here at the house. So. Um, anyway, right? That was my little trip down memory lane here. But so it's a nice little addition. They're not big rooms, but they're functional. The problem is it's a flat roof, right? So whenever you have additions to different parts of the house, they have to add some kind of a roof, and they did kind of a barely sloped roof. And if you've ever had a flat roof, they're always a problem. They leak, they cause all kinds of issues. So there's a drain, um, but it gets clogged, as you might expect, with leaves and such. And we tried a variety of different things to keep that from happening. Grates and vents, and nothing helps. Good morning, Ruth. It still gets clogged, and we still have water leaking. So This is our last ditch effort. Is we've given up trying to keep the drain clean. Now we're just trying to find an easy way to get out on the roof. Because right now my husband's been climbing up on the roof, which isn't great. I've been encouraging him not to do that as he approaches 60 years old. It's perhaps time to stop climbing up onto the roof of houses, at least not that high as this one. So the hatch will be our new way to creep up on the roof and clear the drain ring. So yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting that done finally. But who knows if they'll turn out. It's a beautiful day. They may have other jobs to do. We'll see. So, as with many things, let's make this. We can make this the theme of our class today. That as with many things in life, once you set things in motion, we have to kind of let them go, right? That I think is a challenging thing for many people. We like to believe that we are in charge of our life, that we are totally in control of what happens. And to some extent, we are. We certainly have a lot of choice and free will about what we do. But as you may have noticed, in a world where we are so deeply interconnected with other people and with things going on in the world, our choice and our decision to do things may be the beginning and end of our free will, right? So we've decided, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And we put that in motion. We take the steps to get that happening. Well, that's maybe where your participation ends for the time being. Then we have to see how it filters down with everything else. And this is why it's so important to remember nothing is solely under your control. Neither is it. So in that respect, a failure is not really a failure, and a success is not really a success, if that makes sense. In terms of your own, patting yourself on the back for it or beating yourself on the back for it, right? Nobody succeeds on their own, and nobody fails on their own either. There are a whole lot of other people, other things, other influences going on. This is very frustrating at times, right? I mean, we don't have any problem succeeding on our own, right? That can be hard, right? Accepting that other people are very vital, vital to your success. Giving credit where it's due. As yogis, we definitely that's one of our parts of satya, is being truthful about these things, not believing that you have more influence than you do, not believing that you have less influence than you do, but understanding just where your responsibility begins and ends. That's part of seeing the truth. And when it comes to failure, right? So, people have different problems. Some people can't stand the idea that they are beholden to other people for their success, right? Some people can't stand the idea that, all they can think about is their failure, right? It's their failure. It's not a failure. It's not something that went wrong. It's my fault, right? So maybe those are two flip sides, right? And most of us fall somewhere in between those two things, right? But both of those, you can see how they're different feelings, but they're equally as incorrect, but also very damaging. right? If you're going to take every time things don't go wrong as a personal failure, first of all, you're going to feel terrible about yourself. Second of all, you will stop doing things, right? And this is why people stop doing things. They feel like it's their fault. They feel like, um, you know, that burden, that pain every time things are not working out. Um, and who wants to go through that? Nobody, right? So you stop. Your life contracts. You stop trying. You stop making an effort. Um, and you can see how this would be detrimental to your life, right? And it can be anything from projects that you're trying to do, maybe something with your work, maybe something with your friends, right? Trying to find new friends or sustain old friendships. Maybe you feel like um, it's all on you, right? This other person isn't really trying. And you've been trying to get them involved to do more things, and they just keep. And you start thinking, well, what am I doing wrong? Is it me? Is it, right? Because we do, right? We turn things around on ourselves. How about we don't do that, though? How about we say, oh, I have no idea why this isn't working out, right? Because I don't know what this other person is doing, right? At work, what about people who try and try and try and it doesn't seem to work out, right? They're doing their best, but they just aren't getting ahead. People aren't recognizing their value or their worth. They feel like people don't like them or something, right? Something just doesn't fit quite right. So they get disillusioned. They get, miserable. Their life starts to be unpleasant. They start resenting their job, resenting the people around them, right? And this is because, again, we are putting ourselves at the front of this. How do we know? We have no idea what the influences are of the people around us. We have no idea why they do the things they do. We just look at it from our viewpoint because we are all at the center of our own little universe. How about we stop that? How about we give people the benefit of the doubt that who knows, why? I'm not going to assume I know why this person is doing this crazy thing or not paying attention. What we do is what we do. You're not going to always be rewarded for your good efforts, and you're not always going to be punished for your bad efforts, right? I mean, that's the truth. People that work in an inattentive workplace, I mean, they don't necessarily get the credit they're due, but they also get away with a lot of stuff, right? More often than not, things fall through the cracks. So we, it's a double-edged sword. Um, what we need to do in all of these situations is stop taking it so personally, right? It's not about you. I mean, maybe some of it is, and certainly it's a good idea to, take a look at your behavior, take a look at your work. But if you're doing a good job, if you're trying to be a good friend, trying to be a good family member, good husband, good wife, good worker, you're trying to do your best, and it's not enough for whoever it is that's around you, well, I guess that's their problem then, isn't it? You can only do what you can do. Do your best. Try your best, because in the end, we're doing it for ourselves. If we think we're doing it for other people, we're going to be disappointed. Um, if we are constantly dependent on other people's opinions, other people's input, we're going to get their distorted view of what we're doing. We are the only um, we're the only thing that really matters in this way, right? Our opinion this feeling that we have within, that's the ultimate, um, I guess, evaluation, right, of what you've done. Um, and that's why it's so important to get clear with this, to get clear with our truth, and have that line of communication open to that center voice. People that don't have that and instead rely on this, they go off the rails pretty hard. And I know you've known people like this, right? People who start being led by their ego and by their selfish desires, right? Um, they are not interested in the opinion of others because all they want is to take things for themselves. So if we're going to follow this, if we're going to follow this path, we have to have a guide, and that guide is the voice within. If you silence that voice, if you crush that voice, if you put on headphones so you can't hear that voice, um, you're going to go down a very bad path, right? And that's what happens. We've seen, all of us, people like this who are really led by their base desires, right? Their greediness, their fears, and their anger. Um, they think about, they carry grudges, right? They try to, make things right for past wrongs that they imagine have happened to them. It's not a pretty way to live your life, but I mean, a lot of people do it. So let's not. Let's keep that voice, because that voice um, cannot be it cannot be silenced forever, right? Um, and we all know what it is. We may not pay attention to it. We may not take it seriously, but we know what it is. No one I've ever spoken to says, "I don't know what you're talking about. I've never heard that voice." I mean, that's not to say there aren't some people like that. I've got to believe that people who really, go deeply down the road of, deranged type behavior, perhaps they can't hear that voice. Um, but for, your average person, we hear it. We just sometimes we wish you didn't hear it. Sometimes we wish it would just be quiet and let us have fun and not necessarily do things that are good for us or for others. Um, but just like everything else that we do that's healthy for us, ultimately, it's the right thing. Long term, it makes us better. It makes us feel better. So short term, doing things that are selfish, doing things that are um, not thoughtful of other people, are not um, thoughtful about, how we are trying to move forward in life. They may feel okay, right? Short term, long term, they feel terrible, and you reap or not the benefit, but the consequences, right? Um, one of one thing that I've seen online, um, which I think is funny, but it's also, it's kind of sad. But this thing where they say, people are angry because they've done something and someone has called them to task for it, and um, what they say is, oh, I never knew there would be consequences to my actions, right? I mean, as if this is a surprise. So we speak about things like our rights and our, the things that we have. So yeah, we do have freedom of speech in this country for sure. You're free to speak your mind. Um, the government is not going to come and lock you up because don't agree with whatever government we have in power. Um, But does that mean that other people are going to be accepting of your what you have to say? No, not necessarily. Does it mean that you are going to be allowed to say anything you want and have no consequences from anyone? People are going to be like, oh, yeah, just say whatever terrible thing you want to say. It's fine. Um, that's not what it means at all. It means you are free to do what you want. You're safe. No one's going to put you in jail. But people aren't maybe going to like what you have to say. People aren't going to agree with it. Um, you will have consequences, just as we do with everything. Um, you know, we talk about this in yoga a lot, this idea that we have choice for everything that we do. We have choice. We may not like the consequences of the choice, right? So, one of the most, um, and one of the ones that we always were talking about a lot, I guess, in my training, um, because it was a lot of women doing yoga training, and the idea was, we always come back to this idea of family and children and being a caretaker and all of this. This is very much the role of women, but it's the role that we've taken on. You could absolutely decide not to do that if you don't want to. When I was caring for my father, here at home, um, I I was very frustrated and stressed out by that a lot of the time. But I also knew that I had options, right? You could put your parent in a nursing home or a care home. You could get respite care. There are options. Unfortunately, it's hard sometimes to get those options, but there are options if you choose to take them. If you don't, then you've made a choice, right? You've made a choice to do it yourself. The same thing with your children, right? We have children, we care for our children. The extreme, if you can't handle that anymore, you don't want to do that anymore, you give your children up for adoption. I mean, believe me, that is a very extreme option. And I wouldn't recommend it for anyone necessarily, but this is what I'm saying. Again, if you choose not to do that, you have made a choice to take care of that child. So you need to do that to the best of your abilities, with your whole heart, and not feel like this is something that you've been forced to do, because you do have an option. You may not like the consequences of that option, and I get that, right? I mean, we are often in life really up against the wall when it comes to our choices. You're in a bad marriage, you can leave, right? You can leave. You may not like the consequences. You may be broke. You may not have any place to live. You might be on somebody's couch, but it's an option. So many times in life we have options that we don't want to take, and so we think they're impossible, right? Oh, I don't have any choice. Oh, yes, you do. You've already made that choice when you decided that that was not an acceptable option for you. So own that. Be responsible for that. Say, okay, you know, I don't want to put my dad in a home for a lot of reasons, right? So I'm going to care for him. And I've made the choice. And when you understand that, it makes a big difference. Now, believe me, I still felt very stressed and very wrung out for all of that. But knowing that it is a choice that I made, I stopped feeling trapped. I stopped feeling like I didn't have any power in this situation at all. And my attitude shifted. Um, and that's really what we want to see. We want people to see the truth, to see that you have many more choices in life than you believe you do, that you have literally the option to do anything if you're willing to accept the consequences, if you're willing to do what it takes to get there. Not all of us are willing to do that. And don't if you're not, then it's okay. Don't think, oh my God, what am I doing? But you know, accept that when you want to go from here to here, there's a lot of work involved. There's a lot of steps involved. Um, we can't do everything, right? I'm not going to, you know, I'll never be an Olympic athlete at this age and at this time in this body. It's not going to happen. I've given up those options all along the way. That's another truth, right? That doors close to us as we get older, as um, we we pass on certain options in our life. That's okay, right? That is the natural progression of things. But others open, other things become more available. Um, this is the truth, and this is, you know, what we want to face. We want to accept that, um, and do, you know, what we can. Be where we are. Um, don't regret those things that we haven't done. Look for the things we can do now. What's next? Um, I am still always amazed at how much we know as we get older. Um, I still feel pretty dumb, right? I still feel like a kid inside and unsure about a lot of the things I do until I start to do some of them and I realize that I know a lot more than I did. Um, that I have an experience that has built over all of these years that um, can give you some confidence. So, just the fact that you've made it to where you are in life in terms of, you know, years lived, experiences gone through, should give you some confidence for the future. Um, if you've made it this far and you are still alive and have a place to live and food to eat and you're able to sustain yourself, you're doing really well. Um, there are a lot of people who cannot do that for themselves for whatever reason. So give yourself a shout out for that and know that you will also be able to go further. Um, you will take all of that knowledge and be doing more as you go. That's the truth. Right? And in yoga, that's what we want, the truth. All right, so let's move around a little bit. I think tomorrow, yeah, tomorrow, um, I forget, we looked it up online. So it's like 10 or maybe 12 days after the symptoms, you start getting symptoms with COVID, you are not contagious. You're for sure not contagious anymore. So my son is going to get to come out of his room. He's been barricaded in his room for uh, since last Tuesday. Yeah. So luckily, right, we are very blessed that we have a big house with several bathrooms. So he's been in the upstairs bathroom and staying in his room, and he goes down the front steps to pick up DoorDash, right? He just calls, gets food delivered, walks back up. You know, he's okay. Although he did say, and this is funny for Jack because he's my introvert, you know, he's kind of uh, he likes being on his own. He enjoys his own company. Um, he spends a lot of time in his room when he's not at work. He says, "Mom, I'm sick of being in my room. When can I come out?" So I think he gets to come out tomorrow, and I think I'm going to make a cake so we can have um, an after COVID party. So, um, but I gotta look that up again and make sure that it's the right day. Um, I don't know. Isn't it fun? This is fun. Like all the stuff that we have to learn now, new things, new things. So sitting up, relax the shoulders, breathe. Then chin to the chest. We'll start moving the head around, big circle. One way and the other. Bring the hands out in front. Then behind, squeeze shoulder blades together. Back up. Right hand on left knee. Left arm behind, sit tall. And we twist. Back to center and switching direction here. Back to center. Let's bring the arms up over your head. And then we're just going to move a little to the right. Back to center, moving left. Back up, let's gaze up. And then bring the arms down, bring them behind, interlace the fingers, squeeze the shoulders back, gaze up. And then fold forward. Back up again. Release the fingers. We shake out the hands a little bit. So it's not really too cold today, but I'm going to remind you of this thing that we've done before for heating up the body, where you bring the fingers onto the shoulders and you just kind of flap your arms a little bit. Which is it looks kind of crazy, but it's a nice way to loosen up the hands and the wrists, and it also is it's heating to the body. So I wouldn't do this on a hot day, right? You're going to feel overheated, but do that for a little bit and you'll feel like a heat in the body. So with yoga, we are always trying to bring up this Agni, what we call this internal heat, right? This fire within, which isn't obviously a literal fire, right? Agni is symbolic for a lot of the processes in the body that heat things up. So, in yoga and traditional Indian medicine, Ayurveda, there's a real connection between the body and the spirit. And we talk about the body as having layers, but then there's also these energy layers and spiritual layers over top of that. They're all connected in this layered way. And the Agni is for all of that, right? So it's your metabolism in terms of a physical, eating the food and such, but it's also your metabolism in terms of consumption of visual stimulus, any type of sensory input. Also emotional, right? So upsets and sadness and anger, like all of these things together, right? They all affect this. They all affect this, how this Agni burns. So we want to bring that up. And a quick way to do that is through these physical practices, through the prana, the breath. And some simple movements. These are called kriyas. These are like little practices that affect how this works. So in the winter especially, right? We're cold, we're kind of constricted and whatnot. This will bring some heat into the body quickly, which is sometimes very helpful. Not just in a physical sense, right? I mean, obviously, being physically cold isn't great, but you may be feeling, kind of under the weather, kind of down, right? The metabolism and the Agni is part of the immune system as well, too, right? So keeping that strong, keeping that all functioning well, get that heat, right? Keep that internal heat going. And when we're feeling a bit off, sometimes it is our flame is burning a little low. Flame never goes out, right? As long as you're alive, that flame is there. But sometimes it can feel like embers, like barely even going. When we are really at one of our real low points, we want to build that back up and get it going. We'll talk more about that, not today, but ways to fuel for that flame, right? There's things that we can give that flame as fuel that help it burn better. We'll talk about that. But let's lay down. We're going to hug, right leg in. And if you want, this is a great time to point and flex the foot. Or you can make, rotate the ankle a little bit. One way and then the other. And switch it around. Point and flex. Rotate. One way and the other. And then just extend the legs. Take a couple of breaths. Bring knees into the chest. Rock a little. Happy baby. Reaching for the ankles or the instep of the foot, drawing the knees down as much as possible. You can stay put here, right? Stay still or move a little. Sometimes movement is easier here. Sometimes just staying still is hard, right? But the other thing, that we're working on with our yoga is this idea that we can sit with difficulty, that we can be a little uncomfortable. Nothing bad is going to happen to us. We are working within our range of flexibility. We can hold this. We can breathe. We can sit in discomfort, right? There are many times in our life that we need to sit in discomfort. We can't always get out of a situation we're in. We can't always move on before we're finished with what we're doing now. Sometimes life is boring. Sometimes it's a lot of the same thing, right? Sometimes it's a dreary job that has to be done, right? Who likes washing dishes? Who likes doing laundry? Who likes cooking their meal every single day? I mean, nobody, right? Yet we do it. So holding poses is training. It's training us to be able to give our attention to these things that need to be done, to not give up, to not bail when things get boring or difficult, right? Whatever path we choose in life, there are going to be a lot of challenges. And if we give up at every challenge, we'll never finish everything, right? We will jump from project to project and never complete anything we want to do. So settle in. If this is uncomfortable, if you're starting to really get uncomfortable, right? And you know the difference between just being a little uncomfortable and having pain. Don't want the pain, right? You can come out of it. You could just extend the legs straight up. You could, change your position a little bit. Maybe move, right? Sometimes just changing what you're doing shifts things. But if you're okay, if you just feel a little uncomfortable, then just stay here. I'm going to stay here and we'll see. When you hold a pose for a little longer, you can start to see all the different areas that that pose is working on. And we're able to change a little bit, right? We can move the pose into the legs a little more than the hips, right? We can lift the legs a little bit or relax through the hips a little more. We can shift the effort into different places. Are you still with me here? Okay, that's enough. I'm just going to extend the legs, point and flex the feet a little bit. And then bend the knees and let's rock back and forth a little bit. And then just extend the legs here. And I'm going to move into Savasana. If you feel like you want to do bridge or something before Savasana, by all means, do it. You can do bridge, you can do supported bridge. It's up to you. As always, right? Your practice is about figuring out what you need. And if you need an extra pose, you should do it. So find that peace and relaxed state. So just as we find our ease in the pose, we find our ability to stay with the pose. Shavasana is the same thing, right? Certainly, when I used to teach in yoga studios, there were always students that wanted to leave for Shavasana. They didn't understand. Why do I have to stay for Shavasana? I don't like it. It's boring. I can't stay focused. I can't, all this stuff, right? So saying you don't like Shavasana because you can't stay focused is like saying I can't do yoga because I'm not flexible enough. Right? Well, if you're not flexible, if you feel like you are lacking flexibility in your body, you need yoga. If you feel like you can't stay focused for Shavasana, you need Shavasana. Right? We're trying to learn these things. We're not skilled at them when we first start. If you were massively skilled, you wouldn't need to do that. Right? And from what I have read, highly evolved yogis who've are very enlightened and have gone beyond in their practice, gone beyond what your average person will ever achieve. Um, these people don't do asana. These people don't do um, a lot of these practices because they don't need to. Right? They have achieved a state where their body is under their control to such a point that they don't need these practices anymore. But not us, right? Regular folks, these practices are to help our body be able to do the things that we want it to do, to help our focus and our attention to do what we want it to do, to learn control, right, in a very positive way, right? A lot of times control gets a bad rap, right? People don't want to be controlling. People talk about being controlled by other people, and it has a negative connotation. But for our purposes, control is ultimately what we want. We want control to see what's true. We want control to not allow our thoughts and our emotions to run rampant over our own health and well-being. Um, we want control over our body so that we can stay flexible and strong. We can do the things that we want to do. We can stay active. We can, you know, keep our balance so that we don't injure ourselves. We can work and move mindfully so that we don't injure ourselves. Um, all of these are our goals, and we get this by learning to control our bodies, our minds, our spirits, our emotions. Um, and it begins with focus, right? It begins with being aware and being present. That's why we practice. It's a practice. It's not a perfection. So don't worry, right? It gets easier. Just like all the other things you've done in your life. When you first started, you didn't know what you were doing. You felt very ill at ease. You felt ill equipped. You were clumsy, right? But you learned. And now look at how good you are. Look at all the things you can do. Yoga is the same. It just takes some time. But unlike the simple things you do in your life, what you do in yoga makes everything else easier, right? The focus you learn in yoga helps you with everything in your life. Every pursuit, every hobby, every activity, relationships, right? That learning, the skill of listening, the skill of um, giving that undivided attention to another human being. It is a priceless gift. If you've ever experienced that, I mean, I can guarantee you've experienced that sensation when someone is speaking to you, but they're not listening. You can see that their mind is somewhere far away. And you know how that feels. It's not a good feeling, it's frustrating. How about the feeling when someone is really listening, is really giving you their full attention? It's a gift. You can give that gift to the people in your life, and they will adore it. Believe me. So when you're ready, just moving a little bit again. Um, I don't have my bells again. I keep forgetting. I keep forgetting to get them. But come on up to a seat when you're ready. We'll have our hands together for a breath in and out. Thank you for making time this morning for your yoga, for sharing it with me here, whatever time of day it is for you. I hope that you have a very good Wednesday. Namaste. Okay, hooray. Um, and we're going to do meditation because Ruth is here. And I know she likes it. So we're doing it. 5 minutes. I know sometimes I'm just tempted not to do it, but then I think 5 minutes, why can't I do that? Right? Well, I can. Everyone can. But we just think in our head, nah, I don't know if I don't want to do it. I don't feel like doing it. 5 minutes. Come on. There was a something I read somewhere online about this idea that you can do anything for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Set a timer. If you have a job that you hate doing, set a timer. Look at exactly how much time it takes to do that little job, and you'll be shocked. And you won't look at that job the same anyway ever again when you know that dreaded job, emptying the dishwasher or filling the dishwasher, takes 5 minutes. 5 minutes. How can anyone, you can put up with anything for 5 minutes, right? Anything. All right, so we're sitting comfortably, maybe in a chair, however, whatever you want to do. And then we're going to get started. So, comfortable focus. Okay, we're back. Hopefully that was a good 5 minutes for you. I will be back here Friday, but at Garfield Park on Thursday. So hope to see some folks there. I was looking at the garden and things are growing. Yeah, just I don't know for how much longer. We'll see. But there's tomatoes and there's some peppers, and I have tulsi growing in there too. Sounds pretty cool. All right. See you sometime. You're welcome, Ruth.